Any second?
Should we turn that
Yeah.
on? We're live?
Mhm.
Okay, go ahead and call the meeting to order. Mr. Moore, would you go ahead and call the roll, please, sir?
Okay, Colonel Estelle, she gonna be, it's not, Daniel Gray,
He's here.
Ava Coleman,
Present.
Jim Moore, present, Ron McDaniel,
Present.
Dina Tony,
Here.
Lauren Martin,
Here.
and Laura Walker.
Here.
All here, sir.
Very good.
We don't normally do the moment of silence.
So this is a workshop, not a regular meeting. We're just gonna go ahead and move right into it. So, Dr. Owa, take it away, please.
All right, thank you. Good evening, everyone.
Even,
The team and I have prepared this slideshow to discuss future planning as it pertains to our budget and just to be proactive. There's a lot of moving parts, and we'll talk about those moving parts with school choice and the fluctuation of enrollment every year, revenue declining, somewhat not major, but we do have some declining enrollment piece, but also revenue from the state, but also some major things that we would like to be prepared for as we plan for future goals and activities and projects for the district. And so our current reality is, as of December 2024, ESSER funds, which we received millions and millions of dollars, expired in December. And so we had to plan for that. And one of the things that you will see a bit later is that we did hire some staff members who have made an impact on our student learning. And so we rolled them over into the operating fund. And we knew this year that the budget would be tight just because of when ESSER funds would stop. And then the fact that we wanted to make sure that we evaluated programs and positions that are making an impact on our student learning. And so this year is that transition year. Also the fluctuation of student enrollment. Right now we're about 4,098. We were a little over 4,100 last year. And so as you all see each month, we have legal transfers, we have school choice at the beginning of each year. So we have a lot of fluctuation, students moving in, students moving out. And so we want to make sure that we are in a good place when that happens, because that's our current reality. Also, as we open the new buildings and start to close the existing buildings, utility costs have been more than what we have had in the past. And so going through that process, we've noticed that we've had an increase in utility costs. So the team is doing some proactive measures to get those down by programming lights and other electricity and things of that nature when it pertains to our utility, programming those so that when we're not in the buildings, when they're not being used, we're not incurring those additional costs if possible. Technology refresh cycle, planning for that, curriculum adoptions, those things happen year to year or every 5 years when it comes to technology. Transportation refresh cycle also is a major thing to plan for, major budget item. As we look as a district overall, we're overstaffed, especially at the elementary level since we have 4 elementaries. Based on the numbers, the state looked at the exact number of elementary age students across the district and then look at the number of teachers. And so we'll need to do some moving around there. Plus, when you hear about the scheduling, block scheduling causes us to have and employ more teachers than 7 periods days. So we'll discuss that aspect as well. And then trends, one of the things we talk about is that people are not having as many babies as they once had. And so projection wise, the finance division at DESE is projecting our enrollment to decrease over the next 10 years because the birth rate is also decreasing in our area. So those are some of the factors we look at when we start projecting out and forecasting as we move the district forward. Inflation is not a surprise to everyone that costs for products and services are rising. food, fuel, and technology. Those are the essential things that we provide here at the district. And so we have to plan for those costs as well. And then salary schedule. We did do some salaries increases over the past few years. One of the things we have to keep in mind is that each year, each July 1st, staff members get a step increase. And so those are additional costs that we want to plan for proactively, knowing that we can expect those to happen every year. And then I mentioned about block schedule, causes us to have more FTEs, which are full-time equivalent, which are staff positions. And then decrease in enhanced transportation funding. Those funds are decreasing because they're being earmarked for other institutions in the state, educational entities. And so we've been cut almost in half this year for what we normally would receive, and with projections that enhanced transportation funding, what we normally would have used buses, pay for fuel and other upgrades of transportation, those that funding has been cut. So this is our current reality that we know of and that we want to continue to plan for and be proactive. And so that's what this session is really about, is to make you aware of the next steps that we're moving in. So if you get any questions, if you have questions now, you'll have information to respond. And so after that, I'm done with this, and Mr. Hunt will come forward with the rest of it.
Well, I think I'm the chosen one to do the presentation. But hopefully this presentation has been shared with all of you. So anything you see in red is a clickable link. So if you want to know way more about this technology refresh, click that link. It'll tell you all you want to know. But basically where we're at is we have technology that is due for an upgrade. This technology has not been purchased out of operating before. All of this was put in place when the buildings were built as part of the building fund and paid for out of the building fund. So this will be a brand new cost. So I've got a first slide, and if you have a paper copy and you want to lay that top slide and lay that second slide side by side, they're slightly different. The difference that you're going to notice is in gray. Some things are really not so much negotiable. You've got displays in classrooms, and those are going to be due for an upgrade cycle and going to have to be replaced. You can see sound system. You don't need any for a couple of years, but after that, we're going to need them starting in 27, 28. So the big things that will impact this budget are the decisions that are made regarding the area of laptops and student devices. So if you look at those two slides, and I'm going to skip to what you're actually looking at. Right now, your teachers have laptops. If we transition them to Chromebooks, we can save between $40,000 and $90,000 a year. Decision somebody's going to have to make. Right now, you've got 7,100 Chromebooks that are tied to students. We've only got 4,100 kids. That's a ratio of 1.73. So every kid has 1.73 devices.
How did we get so many above the students?
So, of course, we were one-to-one, and then we had some classrooms that actually had classroom sets, like a mobile cart. And so that's how the numbers increase. And then we purchased some for whenever a group of devices were, I was about to say injured, but kind of destroyed or needed repair, they would go into the shop or repair, and then we would still have to purchase some more so students would have access to it. And so
That's 7,100 that are in working order.
7,100 right now that would be that are going to be somewhere in a replacement cycle. I'm suggesting that as you replace them, you drop that number closer to 4,900. You are going to want extra. You are going to want to be able to swap one out that's not working for another one. But what is that number?
So what's the difference between a Chromebook and a laptop?
Chromebook does
So
not.
$50,000.
A Chromebook is basically internet access. It does not have a hard drive. It boots up in seconds. It does not house Microsoft Excel, Microsoft Word, some things that some people may need. So you may still have to get laptops for those particular people, but everyone else can access the internet, save things in their Google Drive, upload, download, do everything they need to do at a much cheaper cost.
And so a lot of our students and staff members utilize the Google Suite. So you have slides, the actual word
Like-
processor, all that.
But Excel and Word, I mean, is there privacy issues with using the Microsoft 365 and using it online? Do we have to have stuff stored on a hard drive somewhere besides on the cloud?
Aaron?
That's a tech.
Sorry, Aaron.
I'm sorry, what was the question?
Is, we're saying that with the Microsoft Excel and Word docs, if there's files that certain teachers would need, do they have to be stored from a legal standpoint on the hard drive versus like in Microsoft 365 or on the cloud?
So we have a host of documents that are hosted in Google, but we're a Google House. So everything integrates with our Google Suite. And so the Chromebooks, they're really just an internet tablet, and they all connect to this Google Suite. So Office 365 will be a license. So if we do move towards student and faculty licensing, it's a different suite, it's a different product suite. And so the Chromebooks are quite a bit lower cost. It's more efficient to get out, especially working on them, power washing them, just, ability to keep them in and out and do a refresh. They're 10 years, and so you get more life out of them. And they move around the portable, they have a solid state on them.
So do we actually need Excel and?
Well, we have Google Sheets. So we have all of the programs that are part of the Google Suite. So
Is there anything that you can't do in a Google
yeah.
Suite that you can do in
I mean,
Microsoft?
There's things that I can't do in Google that I have to have Excel for my job. I know.
There are some things like I would still need access to Excel for certain things that I need to be able to do for the state. But I think that would be on a case by case basis. I still think you're gonna have some people who need it. I wouldn't have to have it on
But for
laptop.
grading and student data and that kind of stuff, they could all switch the sheets and be fine.
That's what we do now. We actually do have business labs that do have Microsoft Suite, deployed at the high school, and Dr. Carter will speak more on it, but, the standard curriculum is based on this Google Suite, and sheets and docs and, they all integrate seamlessly.
That just seems like a pretty easy decision to
Well,
me.
yeah, why didn't we do it to begin with? Yeah. It's kind of.
I guess my only concern is being in, working in higher ed is that we don't allow our students to have, Chromebooks. And a lot of higher institutions don't use Chromebooks like that. They use regular laptops. So it may just be a learning curve whenever they do go, if they choose to go into higher.
Well, students have
Well,
Chromebooks
students,
now,
yeah,
right?
students are
That's all
already
they have
using
now.
Chromebooks.
Well, I'm saying that we don't allow Chromebooks. They are required to have laptops, and a lot of colleges require you to have laptops. So it's just kind of a different setup. So I do like that it's gonna be a cost saving, but I would like for us to have that ability to have, for the students to have access to it somewhere. Like not get totally rid of them. Maybe we're having them in the computer lab. They have some type of access to it. Cause in the computer literacy courses, like, do we have any type of computer, like, do they learn Microsoft Word and Excel? Cause that is a job skill. That every application that I see, it doesn't matter if they're looking for you to have a PhD or a master's degree or whatever, a doctoral degree or a master's degree. That's a simple skill that they're looking for you to, be able to do.
Well, scholars are exposed to that. One of the things with Google is that a lot of our teachers are using the Google Classroom. That's how a lot of our students access their information that they need. So that's what they are accustomed to, and teachers with that Google Suite and in the Google Classroom.
But they're not using laptops anyway. They're using Chromebooks anyway.
And I just want them, I
As long as they know how to
personally,
use a
yeah,
spreadsheet and
I
a
just want
workbook.
them to be able to have access to it, yeah, because I think it's like, I use Google Suite for a lot of my things too, or whatever, but I just would like them to have the ability to have some type of exposure to it. Like, I don't want it to wipe it out of our school district totally, and they never see it until they get to college, because it can kind of be like a shock. Because I have students who, it's kind of a shock for them.
Mr. McGinty, do we, or Dr. Carr, do we, any of our CTE courses utilize Microsoft?
Some of, like, bringing in the banking pathway, things like that, we are gonna have to build a laptop lab in those. Which at this time should be using the laptops that we're repurposing. So we do have some courses that have laptop labs because the courseware for that course, you have to have it. I think like CAD, engineering, pre-engineering, those courses.
But those will be labs not provided one-to-one.
And not to compare us to any other district, because we're, of course, not like them, but there are other districts that also utilize all staff with Chromebooks. All of their staff have Chromebooks too, so we wouldn't be the only district moving toward that. So.
And they have their own virtual ones that they use instead.
If we go to all staff on Chromebook, can we ensure that all staff can print from Chromebooks? Because special ed teachers must be able to print.
There's a lot of things right now that the staff cannot do on their Chromebooks.
I would agree. I think there's been promises made by not Mr. McGinty, so we might be doing good things.
I mean, I hate to be the one that my staff has to be able to print for their.
This is not me telling you what we're doing. This is me saying these are your options.
I'm just saying that is one option. We have to make sure that special ed staff has to be able to print documents legally for parents.
Do they have, I mean, can you?
I understand. I will say, the past 10 years, that's all my teachers used at a previous school, and we printed sped documents and
Yes.
did everything remote. So, I know it can happen, it hasn't happened for 2 hours.
Our teachers currently cannot print here.
Yeah, we're not opposed to it, it's just right now, I just know that there are things that they either have to borrow my laptop for, or they have to get a desktop, or, you know, whatever, because they can't use Chromebook for.
We can dive into why we can't currently print. Want to, I don't know if it's.
Well, since they put it out there, go ahead and explain why we can't.
So right now, we're doing job accounting. And so there's not a way to do the job accounting and print from a Chromebook. We also sit on a separate subnet, which is a different network inside our network. And so when you think of it just the way that you partner your network, you put these devices, even though they're in this building, there's 8 to 9 different networks inside the same building. We have Chromebook network, you can think of, we have faculty network, Windows laptop, and integrating those to touch certain servers, you have vulnerabilities. So the more exposure, it's just more opportunity for, an issue to, it's mitigating exposure. It's the proper way to do it. You do that by putting these internet folks in certain. They're sitting in a certain place in the network, they don't reach all resources. And even if they could access those resources, how you would do job accounting, we would have to. Right now, completely. So I don't know how much. Individuals like job accounting.
They're just like tracking who's printing what,
Yes, sir.
how many color copies, how many black and white copies,
And then it would be,
all that.
limited devices can do it, we can roll that, do it from a policy, we do policy-based printing. It's just, it's a lot of work to do.
I guess.
But it's not something we can't do, it's not something we can't look at. But right now, we cannot currently print like we can from.
Sounds like there's probably a happy medium somewhere in there, but 7,100 versus 4,900 is that's a big start.
That's definitely an adjustment that we can make starting.
All right, transportation, so it comes down to buses and your white fleet. Once again, you've got access to this, you can get this transportation refresh and see the state of all the buses, the state of white fleet, everything that is carried back is in that link. For our purposes, we'll look at what it costs to basically get 3 brand new buses at about $135,000 a year. And then slowly start looking at the state of your white fleet, replacing a vehicle here and there. Is that, and your white fleet are the ones that do your maintenance and those kind of things, take the guys here and there, everywhere. If you go with used buses, I know used sometimes gets a bad term. You're talking about a 2-year-old bus, got about 30,000 miles. You don't have to bid it, and you can get them for under 100,000. So you say 45,000 off the top, it's kind of broke in, you don't have to bid it. And you have to bid it and you have to order it. That means we have to order it today if we want to get it by a year plus from now. If we needed a bus, we could literally get a used bus next week if we found one. So it's about $100,000 difference. We're looking at 3 buses a year.
What's the market on used buses? Are they out there?
They go quickly.
That school districts are leasing buses and then they sell them after they're about a year and a half, 2 years.
Well, what's the lease option for a bus?
I haven't delved into
Not
that
good.
lease option.
I'd say with all these changes coming to everybody, I would think that that will have an impact on your used fleet. Everybody's gonna be trying to do the same thing instead of buying new buses, but
I think leasing them is more popular with schools up in the northeast United States.
Midwest.
Huh?
Midwest.
so this is like, we're not just looking at school buses in Arkansas, you're talking about buses. Okay.
No, the gentleman I spoke with out of Indiana at our last conference, they have a company actually that they just call in and say, we've got this many lease buses that we're rotating out. And, when the market buys them cheaper, they're just getting broke in at 2 years. I mean, really, and you don't have to bid them. And again, even the propane buses that we got the grant for, we had a 1.5 year lag on getting them in. So this is just a quicker, easier, and cheaper way to keep your fleet moving.
Curriculum is the big animal.
Mr. Hunter, you can go back to transportation.
Yeah.
And so since we're on transportation, we've also talked about, if you remember a year ago, we talked about when the new buildings were finished, the possibility of rezoning the lines. And so transportation, Mr. Beck, if you want to come and present. Anybody over here?
What you have in front of you is a rezoning proposal that we've been looking at with the bosses you'll turn to the next page of rationale for some of this rezoning is consistency with scholar logistics and learning, continuing to reduce the overflow students in the district. Like when we started out, our first rezone, we had 59 overflow kids that we transported back. We pick them up at one school and bring them to another because there were just too many in that particular building. This year we had 5. So the goal is 0. You don't want to have any at all because it's not as efficient because when you're moving, the more you drive, the more fuel you spend. So we want to spend as little fuel as we can because it's so expensive. And of course, right now we got a declining enrollment at Bobby G, and JES is busting at the seams right now. So that's what this proposal is about. And especially at JES, there's some problems accommodating special classes and stuff like that, small group, because they're simply just out of room. So if you'll look on that next sheet.
I think we should probably just say, when we talk about special programming, we're talking about ESOL, GT class, things that are required by the state. So he's not over in numbers, he's just over in space being used in that. Does that make sense?
So if you look at the next page, it kind of gives you, shows you the zones and then gives you a current enrollment for each school. And I took that just straight off of each school. JES is like at 757, which is at or little bit. And then Bobby G is like at 421, and their capacity is 650. So or 648, something like that, right around 650. So that you can see the need there. There's way too many in one building. We we were talking about Bobby G the other day. I was talking to Philip about it, well, today especially. There's been some reasons because Bobby G is like it is. We've had a lot of military people that have moved here recently. They've moved, and also, you guys remember when Willow Bend got kind of condemned? Well, we started out with almost 50 kids, picking 50 kids up at Willow Bend, and currently we're picking up 20. So there's 30 kids just right there, just like that. So that's kind of what's going on right now. The next page is the proposed change for the rezoning. We'd like to rezone 83 scholars that are in that green triangle that you see on the paper. The area is kind of Vandenberg and Marshall Road, and it goes all the way down to like where New China is. So it's kind of just right there in the middle. There's 83 kids. It makes sense to us because, and if you look over to the left of that, it shows how many kids will be going into each grade from there. And it kind of makes sense to us logistic wise to move those kids because they're on that side of the interstate. And we don't have to travel far, to go back and forth over the interstate to get kids.
Did y'all look at the Jackson Terrace area as well?
Philip?
I'm sorry, where's Jackson Terrace? I think they're currently zoned for Biomeda.
Macau and that area. We didn't. It's a big area and it has a lot of students. We would probably look at the neighborhood if we took that back and gave it back to either JES or Bobby Lester. We'd probably be talking somewhere in the neighborhood of 100, 175 possible students just because of that area. I mean, it has a lot of housing in that general area. I don't know why we didn't really look at it. We looked at it, it's mainly, that was a good area just because of closeness to keeping us all on the same side of the freeway.
I've just had a lot of parents over the years question why they've got to go all the way out to Biomeda, but I mean, it's pretty dense. There's a lot of new houses and a lot of kids out there, I'm sure, so. Geographically.
Geographically, and I don't know if it matters, but if you took that population from Biomeda, then non-minority population goes down.
Yes, that's the other thing that would happen. Minority population is mainly in that area.
And one of the reasons why that first rezoning, when Anderson Point was moved over there, that was the main reason for it. But now, most of those students now are not Black. So they've been moved back to KS now. Okay, if you look, if we do rezone, I kind of gave you a breakdown of numbers. JES, that set them around 674, and they'd be under their max capacity, and it would move Bobby G up to 504. If that could basically happen, and we would look at school allocations in March, and then create our routes based on new zones by the end of April, and then notify parents any kind of form of communication that we have in the district, every kind, to be exact, to make sure we got anybody by May.
So are all 83 of these students bus riders?
No, those are just registered at these. They're not all, we just took a number that were zoned, that were living in that zone at this time.
What's the current enrollment at Biomeda?
Without
Come on,
taking
you
it through 399.
What's your capacity?
460.
460, and then what?
I have 431.
You have 431 currently, and your capacity is 460 as well.
And those, the next, okay, so probably about 70 of those. That's our biggest.
So the Bobby G is pretty much the only one that's.
Yes, sir. And we run about 70%. That's district wide is what we transport.
Is there a way, like, if I had a fourth grader at JES and I'm willing to drive them there?
Oh, yeah. So we do that now. So we have intra-district transfer, and Dr. Walker and Mrs. Hicks, they spend all summer up until the 1st of August, meeting those requests. So, we have parents who.
We can
opt into-
notify them, like, okay, this is a zone change, we're not providing busing.
Right, but it all depends on room and availability. And so that's why, Dr. Walker and Mrs. Hicks, they work on it all summer, because if we run out of
Sure.
seats for second grade, then they can't go. Any questions? All right.
And if you will look on that proposed change here, this small area here, this Bobby G. Lester is also your tornado route. And a lot of those kids did not come back into. So that's just one more factor that, that affected that too. So some of those did not come back this year. They could return this year, I don't know.
All right, the curriculum side, wish I could tell you there's a lot of options here. There's just one slide. And you have a clickable link at the top if you want to know more about the curriculum refresh. But it's about, going to be about $1.3 million a year for the next 10 years. Hard to project out 10 years because we all know that cost goes up. So just kind of hold it at 1.3, see what happens to cost. There's some minor things you could do, but unless you're gonna cut programs or something like that, all these are gonna have to be replaced, so. I threw this in there. I know earlier when I was talking to Coach Chicken, way back in, I think it was July or early July, he was telling me that we needed to look at this, so I threw this in there. I think a lot of this can stay in the athletic budget, but you do have helmets for safety reasons and pads for safety reasons that have to stay certified. They have to be reconditioned every other year to keep their certification. Then after, I want to say 6 or 7 years, you have to get rid of it because they can no longer be certified. Just something else to keep on the radar. It is a relatively small cost. It's still a cost nonetheless. All right, so things that rolled over that were previously paid out of ESSER. Still have about $1 million in salaries that were previously paid out of ESSER funds that came into your operating budget. And then we've got, this year, we have $1.3 million in utilities. Most of that is electricity.
And historically, our utilities have been well under $1 million. It's about eight to nine.
Last year they hit 1.2. And utility costs are on the rise.
Where are we seeing is it mainly electricity or is it gas?
It's mainly electricity.
Yeah, energy.
Yeah, Entergy bill alone last year was 1.2 million.
Are we tracking that by building to see, is it?
Yeah, so Bobby, you want to share?
Before this year, you're building new buildings and they're on, and you're also keeping ones up until they get demoed. So you have utilities that are still there until, like today, Ms. Grisby, I need you to call First Electric. We're shutting off by me today because the demo is next Monday. So that electricity's been on.
But you factored that into your projections, correct?
Do what?
Like, no, we're not paying any more electricity for Biomeda in your
So
projections.
we want to see a reduction. And also we're going to see a reduction in it once that all our buildings are on control systems. Our old ones were not. All our new ones, we can control that the lights go off at this time. That's the thing. So we're gonna see a decrease in utilities, electricity based upon those two things. We've got buildings that are gone. They no longer have that. I mean, those were not energy efficient. I mean, they're going out to the ground now, so we believe that's gonna be a big one. And then again, we're like just 2 months ago, we looked at the controls for Jacksonville High School, and we saw where the lights were staying on till 10 o'clock. We're like, no, we can pull that time down and get every school on the same. And right now, we're really kind of playing with the two new schools too, just to get a good time on when to get the lights off. And that goes with parking lots, that goes with the inside. So, Ms. Tony called me several times, the lights are on and still out here, I'm like, yes, because we are working on those control systems.
Now, do we leave the parking lot lights on 24 or all night?
No,
So so currently they're going off at some point?
yes.
And it's pitch black? That's not good. Is there a way to like take a couple of them off and leave a few lit?
Can definitely look into that.
I know that's going the wrong way, but those campuses being completely dark is not healthy either.
But there's lights on the school,
Lights
it's
on
just the
school.
parking lot, but you can see the school and
You can
it's.
see the school still lit up. Parking lot, we just don't,
Maybe just by the entrances.
Yeah, they're on.
we could look at that. But again, it's gonna be very, very nice to have them all on controls. We can, you know, set those times when we know there's events, when we know there's, you know, the things that are gonna go on in the community. We can, you know, we have a event platform that we put stuff in, and we'll know, you know, in there, maintenance has said these lights need to stay on longer because of parent-teacher conferences and things like that, so. I think we're gonna see a reduction in those utilities.
In the old Biomeda, do we have the lights on in that, event center adjacent to it,
Oh, the multipurpose.
multipurpose center?
It will be switched over to him as soon as it's in the ground. Like, we met with him out there today, so the demo guy does not take his electrical access to his building, whereas ours we turned off, and then that account will go into Mr. Nicholson.
All right, so this is just a summary page that kind of goes over everything we talked about before. You've got a low end and a high end, whatever you know. Good news is you can pick from either side you want to pick from, all one side, piecemeal it together, however you want to do it. Somewhere between 1.8 and 2.7, which is about a $900,000 swing, almost $1 million. So that money is going to come back as an expense into your operating. So how we gonna pay for that? So real quick budgeting lesson. I would like to get us to where we budget about 85% of the revenue that we expect to get, and then budget our expenditures at about 110% of what we expect to spend. If we can balance those two numbers, our budgeting worries are over. Sure. Okay, this allows us to have flexibility when an expense comes up, to not have to really worry about anything. We would also factor in a building fund transfer, that would obviously be the difference. All right, so quick staffing lesson. The state average per pupil, so the state average is 14.7 pupils per staff member. A few years ago, I think 3 years ago, we were at 16.2, which was much closer to efficient. Now we are at 14.02, which is going the opposite direction. That tells us off the bat that we have 35 more teachers with roughly the same number of kids than we had then. All right, ideally, I need a space right there. Ideally, we would be closer to 17. Closer we get to 17, the more efficient we are, the more flexible we are, the less we have to worry year over year. So before we talk about staffing, just one quick thing to keep in mind. One certified position at the base salary of 50 gives 50 people a $1,000 raise or a $1,000 bonus. So as we talk about staffing, kind of keep that in mind. I know I'm going quick, because I think the last slide is probably where you're going to want to spend your time. When it comes to raises and bonuses, because I know everyone will ask, I would recommend that we look at all these other plans and talk about that at the very end. All right. So, talk about this first. So far this year, attrition from our beginning budget until now, which is about 6-7 months in, we're in period 7 right now. We have already cut from the budget this year about $1 million. I don't know if these numbers, but they're pretty much to the penny. So we're at about $1,037,000 has already come out of the budget. So we're the 4 teachers, somebody from my payroll office, 5 pairs, and you can kind of see what we've been able to do.
And a lot of that, board members come from having conversations with the team if we really need these positions. If we have other people that are licensed, if we can shift the duties and just being more efficient. And so among the team, they've been able to have these savings just from within these first 6 months, 6-7 months of school.
So the next slide is really, it's not even a slide anymore, it's a spreadsheet. Are the spreadsheet of recommendations that we as a team came up with that would save us an additional $4.7 million.
This is over how many years?
2.
2.
So we'll start this year and then the goal is to really do it through attrition. And so over the next couple of months, we're going to look at Erica and the team, Ms. Logan and the team have already started looking at people who have submitted their intent letters. And so we're factoring that in. We're factoring in people who leave after that, and we can move people around. So attrition, we hope to accomplish that. But then some of them won't be attrition. Some of them will be positions that we don't continue because there's really not a need for those positions any longer. So over the next year to 2 years, we're aiming for those savings, about 4.7.
And I know that sounds like a big number, but keep this in mind. One of these 2 numbers is coming back into the budget to balance that number out. Somewhere between 3.3 and $3 million is coming back into that operating budget. So that's not going to be a savings of 5 million. Swapping out 3+ billion of that for different costs.
And the projected revenue stream coming in is going down as well.
Projected revenue stream right now, of course, we're in legislative session. So whatever they decide will be the new number for the next couple of years per student. Right now, we're at $7,771. They do expect that to go up, but we are projecting right now to be about 75 students lower going into the next budgeting year than we are now. The state has given me projections out 10 years, and they are projecting about 43 to 48 kids per year drop consecutively for the next 10 years. And some of that has to do with birth rates. Birth rates across the state are gradually creeping lower and lower and lower. Which means your kindergarten enrollment numbers are going to be lower. Just going to have a cascading effect year over year. They're projecting about 30, 35. Will be at about 4,700.
Where does the assessed value of property tax factor into beyond the?
That's a good question. The property tax the assessments continue to rise. We met with the treasurer last week. She's doing a great job. Our collections run at about 92 to 93%, and she does everything she can to get that other 7-8% through delinquent taxes and everything else. So she's doing a great job for us. As long as that assessment value can stay up and our collection value can stay up, and the state obviously will give us more money next year than 77, 71. We just don't know what that number is going to be. They've thrown out a number of 8102, which would be the biggest rise in the history of Arkansas in a year. So I'll believe it when I see it, which would be an awesome thing for everybody. But it's going to cost state a lot of money to do that. But as long as our assessment values stay up and our collection values stay up, then we should be fine.
So that part of the revenue, we should be fine. But our concern is the fluctuation of student enrollment. So not just the birth rate, but in fact, we're in Central Arkansas and our students can stay, the parents, family members can live where they live, but choose between 8 to 10 different.
Have we looked at the number of building permits and number of lots that have been platted, taking that into account?
Yeah, so Mr. Moore and I meet a lot of times about just city planning and looking at new housing developments, new proposed business. So we're taking in that to account. But for example, the new housing developments that are coming off of Harris and General Samuels, that's factoring in, that's on our radar. But until we get kids who are school age in those houses, we can't really factor that in. Even the new subdivision on General Samuels that's closer to 107, those students are now zoned for us. At first they were not, but now they are. But until they fill all of those houses, we don't know exactly how many students that would bring to the district. But we would get the revenue from the property sales, but not we don't know how many with the students with foundation funding. And that's what our foundation funding is based on from the state.
Because they have the opportunity to go wherever they want to go. Choice. Did we get fully funded? Did anybody get fully funded for the teacher increase to $50,000?
So we're funded for that, but we're funded based upon the teachers who are coming out of Fund 2000, which is operating. And so we have staff members who are funded from state categorical and also federal, and that's not factored in there. So we have to account, the district takes that on when, because of the salary schedule. So we pay in addition to what the state, but we get about 1.3 million from the state for the 50,000.
Teacher salary percent.
Yeah.
Is that enough?
It's not enough to balance off.
Yeah.
So that's why we have to include operating fund to meet that.
Make that
That's it.
requirement.
And what a lot of people don't realize, so even though we have staff members who are being paid out of federal funds and state categorical, we only get a certain amount. That didn't change, and actually is going the opposite direction. And so the difference that we have for the staff's salaries and benefits has to come out of Fund 2000, which is operating. So we have to account for that.
That's the thing to keep in mind is that every staff member costs you 30% more than whatever their salary says. Because the benefits, the matching, things like that. So
Now there's a benefit to have the salary schedule, and we're reaping the benefits because we have high retention. So we're keeping and low attrition. So we were keeping our staff members, which is a plus because that's going to benefit us academically. And so we want to retain. And so that's why we decided to really make sure we focus on the salary schedule so we can attract and retain our staff members.
Plus it helps with not having to train again.
Yeah, that's a saving with PD funds, not having, because Dr. Picard and Dr. Walker, the curriculum staff, it was like a cycle. We would train, they would invest, train off, and then we would lose them to surrounding districts. So it's like.
Can you touch on building fund and now that all the projects are completed, how that is going to factor moving forward? And
so, based on the resolution that you all passed when Dr. Duffy was here, we have to keep 2.5 million in operating each year, and the excess of that goes into the building fund. Well, because and you were going to get this proposal later this year, but because salaries at that 2.5 is set to cover expenses July and the 1st of August until we start getting our revenue in from the state and federal and taxes. And so that 2.5 is supposed to cover all those expenses. And so my request was for us to up that amount so that because salaries have increased. And so we need to make sure we have more money in the fund to cover those expenses. So with that, and like you said, since we're not building anymore, like we were, there's not really a need to put so much back in building fund, but we do need to for renovations, for different things, for upkeep, like maintenance. They repainted all the new buildings other than Biomeda and Merle Taylor. They had to go through and paint those. And so we got to make sure we have maintenance funds in there so we can cover those and things, unexpected things, like when we outfitted ALE with the new HVAC systems, that came out of building fund. And so we needed to make sure we had that to pay for as well.
My concern is, I know ESSER funds have gone away, but we had the reading specialists, we had the literacy folks and stuff, and we were able to get out of oversight. And I'm just concerned that if we cut.
So what you'll notice, Mr. McDaniel, our goal is not to cut those positions. We actually rolled those positions over from ESSER. And so when I stated this a few minutes ago when we first started, we knew that we were going to be tight this year with the budget because we rolled those positions over. And so we're using our student growth funds to cover some expense. And that's really what it's for anyway. We get that one time. If you gain a lot of students, you get student growth funds for that 1 year. If you lose a lot of students, you get declining enrollment funds from the state to cover you so you can have at least a year to balance out your budget. And that's what we're using this year for. Hence, we're proposing these budget revisions or adjustments so that we don't have to go into our savings to meet the needs each year. So.
Okay.
I have a question about, it says no lunch monitors, so we won't have none in the district, or?
That's the goal. And yes, so that's the goal.
So are the kids not gonna be monitored, or like
Yes.
how would?
So yes, they will. Through discussion with administration, for example, the high school has they have 2 lunches, the most students. All of their assistant principals, their principal and security, they provide the supervision. And so the expectation is that the other schools do the same thing.
They do a good job too. Yeah, that's it. Okay.
Any other questions?
Is there anything on here that you're a little hesitant about? I mean, I know all of it
Well,
could be hard, but
for me, I was hesitant about making all of these cuts in 1 year. Because we need the opportunity to see attrition, people who are leaving, how we can continue. Like I said, the team did a great job in cutting almost $1 million this year from the budget. So we want to be able to continue to do that before giving someone a letter or, well, with LEARNS Act, you just don't offer them a contract, but we have a conversation about staff members. But we want to have less of those conversations and absorb the positions or relocate, reassign staff members as positions come available.
so I assume we're currently not, are we kind of frozen as far as hiring?
Yes, we're only hiring essential personnel, but we've been frozen since probably August. I had the team to not bring Erica any recommendation unless those are, one of the things, we don't want to impact student learning or safety, staff safety. And so we brainstormed, we talked, there was a lot of conversations on if the positions are needed, if not, and we look at pros and cons. And so those are conversations we have on a regular basis. We had one of those conversations today about our positions moving forward. So, and I said leadership.
So what is the timeline, as far as from board action, what we would need to do, or what's the plan as far as bringing us a full to implement some of these actions?
So none of these really will cause you all to have action. This is just information purposes. So in case you all get inquiries from staff or community, because a lot of this would be just not for the positions, not offering contracts for next year. That's really not the only board decision that comes for you. If the ones we offer contracts to, you'll approve those. The reduction, those will come before you on a personnel. So when reduction in days, contract days, that will come, you'll start seeing those as Mrs. Logan start working on contract renewals. SPED bonus, because that was a sign-on bonus, because that was a board action, you'll see that as an action. But a lot of these, when it comes to positions, like the option to stagger times, that's administrative decision moving forward. So
What about the rezoning?
that you'll see, probably see that next month in the February.
Next week.
Yeah, next week. So. Or in March. So February and March, you'll see that is board action to rezone. Okay. So
Where do we have crossing guards?
on Loop, you have them, by the gas station park, right there. And we have,
I've never seen a crossing.
you said Bobby G,
No, Bucks is where,
Bucks. Where's,
the other is,
both ends,
Both ends.
both ends. So Madden.
both ends of Linda Lane.
Yeah.
Okay.
Are they only there for elementary?
They stay there for the.
No
No.
school too?
You've never seen them?
No, I've never.
With, the crossing guards, how long are they there in the morning and after?
Visible.
6:45 to 7:30.
They bouncing
6:45, 7:30.
at the donut
Got
shop.
GPS track.
So they're
They're both ends, there's one on Loop and one on Madden. Obviously, one on Loop, at the end of the gas station, because that's a big intersection. We do have one on Madden. In the afternoons, they're out, dismissal. You don't have one in Loop in the afternoons. Madden in the afternoon.
So they're just for JES and not JMS. The hour.
So you did that, see it.
So 2-year time period to get to this number.
Let me go back to the lunch bunch. So would that be ending this year?
Yes.
They just kind of it's hard for me. I understand and I do think it will work, but I guess I just think about.
How many lunch monitors are there per school?
They vary.
They vary, I think.
We would be fine. Yeah, I would say, we're in it anyway, because they really can't handle it.
Okay, so it's not like when we was in school.
Yeah, I mean, like,
No.
we're always in it. So.
And they were yelling at us and, oh my goodness, they
Yeah,
used to be
they don't
mean.
Call our
But I
moms.
don't know the kids, so it's.
Principals walk in, they all snap their attention.
Especially at JES.
Dr. Can we have copies of this last few slides so I
He sent
Yes,
the
I
email
just
to
sent,
us.
you have it in your email, and if Melissa needs to provide copies, we can, have them available at the office. But everyone should have it in there.
Any other questions? I just want to say, good job. I appreciate the information. I'm proud of us for, getting on it early and trying to be proactive on it. Budgeting is not fun.
Y'all did a great
Money
job.
is, finite and we've got challenges to overcome. So appreciate y'all.
Absolutely.
Anything else?
Dr. O, who was actually on that team,
On which team?
on this team?
Oh, everyone at this table, so Mrs. Logan, Mr. Hunt, Mr. Lester, Dr. Walker, Mr. Beck, and Philip. Am I missing anyone? Oh, Kevin, Mr. Martin.
Great job.
Great job.
I don't see, Mr. McDaniel on the agenda, but
Hey, I make a motion, we adjourn.
we are adjourned. Thank y'all.
Man.